Hi, I'm Anna Anderson. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I decided to prepare my TED Talk to be about negotiations and how they can work in an organization to be successful, as well as the personal attributes that employees portray to make them successful. So there are many different reasons behind negotiating within an organization, but we also do it in our everyday lives. We negotiate sometimes without even knowing it. We negotiate what restaurant we want to go to, what meal we want to split with a friend, what movie we want to go see, just what we want for dinner between our family members. All sorts of conversations we have every day involve negotiations. But negotiations in an organization can be detrimental to the business organization and their history or future. Some of the different types of negotiations that I found and narrowed down to that I found important were contractual agreements, legal reasoning, interpersonal or relationship based, decision making ideas, financial reasoning, and there's many others that go on every day without us even realizing it. As future managers and students now, we have to take on multiple different roles for our subordinates to work effectively and efficiently throughout the day on projects, assignments, everyday work. So I found a chapter from the text that we're reading now. I believe it's chapter 7, Leadership and Management, and it came across Mintzberg's managerial rule set. So he conducted a study that involved following top-level managers around, and it ended with results that were completely shocking to himself. He found that managers had 3 different engaging behaviors, and he categorized them as interpersonal, informational, and decision-making roles. So each role had ended up having a factor in relation to negotiating that I think does. So the first is the interpersonal role, or he described it as a concern with relationships with others in the organization. So from here, 3 sub-roles were identified within this interpersonal role, and the most that I found relating to negotiations was being the liaison role. And this role dealt with a network of dealings with peers and others throughout the organization. So managers tend to negotiate the relationships with their subordinates and try to work out plans that can, in the end, make both sides satisfied, as well as customers and other organizations that they may deal with. So an example that I thought of this, that I thought related to this, was the restaurant business. And I believe that consumers may have issues with their food that management has to take care of. So I think negotiations can be made. You can bring out a new meal. You can offer the meal to be free. You can offer free dessert, free appetizer, or a free gift card for the next time you come in. I think this negotiating happens frequently in the food industry, and most managers, it could be an everyday occurrence depending on where they are. The second role is an informational role. So 3 sub-roles were identified within this informational role, and the most I found relating to negotiations was the disseminator role. This role dealt with the dispersal of information to their subordinates. This I related to the idea of contractual agreements with new employees, being that they sometimes need to negotiate pay, living arrangements, benefits, paid days off, vacation days, all sorts of different things in a contract. And these managers are the ones translating the information that's decided, it's pre-decided by upper managers or what have you. So eventually they're being the middleman of the process. So, and actually this relates to being known as a mediator, which I will discuss later in this talk. And so the third and final rule is the decision-making rule. So Mintzberg found 4 sub-rules, and he identified them as decision-making. Entrepreneur, that's to monitor the info. The disturbance handler, resource handler, and negotiator. So I found that the two relating to negotiation obviously was the negotiator and then also, excuse me, the disturbance handler. So this disturbance handler, they deal with information that tends to be out of the manager's control, such as involuntary situations. So they have to act on these decisions so they can be made quickly or, in the long term. So sometimes these situations do not need to be negotiated and just need an easy solution, but some others may actually need to be communicated with the organization and negotiated, with another organization or business they're dealing with, or just within the organization itself. And the second role associated was the negotiator role itself. So these negotiations may be routine, everyday things similar to the restaurant, or they could be new and major decisions to be made about a new project or plan for the organization that could be detrimental to the organization. This tends to be most done with new hires and new labor agreements or new contractual agreements with new organizations. So outsourcing, I found, could relate to this as well, being that the organization wants to negotiate with another to receive the best price and package from or with another organization. So there's obviously legal issues to contracts and negotiations. So they're nothing to joke about when discussing business with another or within an organization. This can lead to serious ethical issues too that organizations want to always avoid. Negotiations can go bad. They definitely can. Negotiations on the inside of an organization can lead to strikes or boycotts and lockouts that are all led by the employees. Strikes are mainly objected to put financial pressure on the company to encourage management to meet demands. These tend to happen within unions of a company, and when their contracts end, they want new demands and they tend to not be met. They lead to strikes and boycotts. Boycotts are made by either employees on the inside or other business organization on the outside, but also customers. Lockouts are the upper level managers not allowing employees into the workplace for reasons of their own. All these are very expensive for firms personally, and they definitely try to be avoided because you don't want workers not coming to work and your product or service not being done. But sometimes they're the only options to get your negotiation side to be heard. Excuse me. Mediation and arbitration. These are two ways to resolve negotiations on the other side of strikes and boycotts and lockouts. Mediation is the use of a neutral third party to assist management or between two organizations. These are useful, and they are useful to find common ground when two stubborn sides are at play, and there needs to be, a fine line set in the middle. Our arbitration is the next step. This is, a formal decision made for the two parties that can be legally enforced as a solution if before the meeting they both agreed that whatever this arbitrator decided was going to be the solution and that it would be final. And I found all this information in a text that I had from freshman year. It's just a business article, and the talked about human resources and negotiating contracts. A research article I read discussed 3 studies that had been done, and this related perspective taking and empathy ideas to the roles of negotiators during negotiations. This was also part of my article review, which I can also relate to this TED Talk. These studies proved that having a perspective-taking role had a greater influence than expressing empathy when finding a solution to a negotiation. So making it more beneficial to think for than to feel for your opponent. These studies are also related to the Big Five personality traits. They can help distinguish which of the personalities best fit perspective taking and empathy roles in a negotiation. The personality trait I attributed most to the perspective taking individual was conscientiousness. I attributed this because this person is described as a planner and always looking forward to what is to come. And this can provide them with the tendency to mimic other people's nonverbal behavior. So, the empathy person is nodding their head and doing that kind of thing, so they know that they understand, so then they, can take advantage of that. And it's definitely a helpful tactic during negotiations. And the personality trait I attributed most to an empathy-taking negotiator was agreeableness. I attributed this because this person is usually good-natured and will easily come to compromise due to their consideration for the other's opponent's feelings. And I found the key to winning a negotiation, according to this study, is understanding the interests and motives of your opponents in competitive decision-making interactions. And this can be found more valuable than connecting with them emotionally. And the perspective-taking tendencies increased their ability to arrive at even more creative solutions, not just one just for them, but more creative that met both parties' needs. So I found a little movie clip that shows an example of a mediation. So it's two mediators. One's Vince Vaughn. They're trying to mediate this divorce and get find a middle ground for each side. So that's an example of, the mediators. And then also they try to get on to each personal side. So, they, even though they're not the negotiators here, but having that empathy, which will get brought up next, but having that empathy towards your opponent can, help get them to say yes to something that you may want. And towards the end of the video, they try to persuade each partner in the divorce, say yes to yourself, meaning, say yes, don't give in to the other side and give them what they want, but doesn't work out so well. So in order for a negotiation to actually take place, it must first be initiated by a party. So a study I found reported findings on this initiation process, and it actually focused on individualism and collectivism, which we talked about in an earlier module. As we learned earlier, individual and collectivism are two ways of understanding the relationship among individuals in a group. So the individualists work just as the idea portrays, with members of the group working and acting on their own, making their own decisions, and collectivism portrays the group as the main source, with the individuals as just a small aspect of the idea of the group. So the study that was taking place hypothesized that the more individualist a negotiator, the greater his or her likelihood of initiating, engaging, requesting, and optimizing a negotiation. So the study found that collectivists lean towards maintaining relational harmony to the point where they are even avoiding negotiating situations or conflicting situations. Excuse me. Individualists are more concerned with themselves and satisfying their self-interests. So these individualists will not only initiate a negotiation request, but optimize it to full success. as well. And initiation is critical and important to implicate a negotiation itself. For years, the only focus on research was of conflict and negotiation themselves and the relationship between the two. The thought of one party making the initiative was completely lost. So gender ramifications can play almost a part in every aspect of the world today. Women are evolving themselves in the business world, and many powerful examples of success are out there in the field. A study researched and found that gender has no relations to the topic when discussing negotiations of wages and jobs in an organization. Each had respectable ability, each side, each gender, to present qualifications and performance to the negotiation. The study related ability to negotiate to age, experience, personality, and preferences. So, age and experience obviously go hand in hand. How much experience you have tends to be with how old you are, but not in every case. Personality I touched on earlier when discussing the big 5 personality traits and perspective taking and the empathy side during a negotiation. And preferences was also touched on during the individualism and collectivism relation to negotiations. So, being that preferences towards individualism had more success than preferences towards collectivism. So, the study focused on the qualities and idea of a good employee and the effects it has on the negotiations and ability to achieve, in this case, a successful wage negotiation within their organization. Focusing on this and the value women bring to their work life contributed to the study to show how this life and effort in the workplace reflects in relation to achieving higher wages in management positions rather than the genders themselves. So I hope you learned something about negotiations or can use something in your future negotiations, and just want you to think about after this what maybe you've negotiated about today that you didn't even realize, maybe something that happened yesterday, this week, or maybe in the future. Maybe you can use one of these tactics to have a successful negotiation that will reflect what you want, and good luck.